Welcome to another peaceful journey through history's quieter moments. Tonight on The Very Boring Historian, we explore why your smartphone wouldn't survive a single day in Victorian London, not through dramatic tales of danger, but through the gentle rhythms and peaceful routines of a world that moved at the pace of human footsteps rather than digital signals. Let the soft glow of gas lamps and the steady clip-clop of horse hooves on cobblestone carry you toward restful sleep. Picture yourself stepping off a steam train at London's Paddington Station on a foggy morning in 1887 during the golden years of Queen Victoria's reign. The air is thick with coal smoke and morning mist, creating a soft, gray atmosphere that muffles sounds and gives the bustling city an almost dreamlike quality. You reach instinctively for your smartphone to check the time, perhaps photograph the magnificent iron and glass architecture of the station, or send a message to let someone know you've arrived safely. But your device, so essential to modern life, would find itself utterly powerless in this world of steam and gaslight. The first challenge your smartphone would face is the complete absence of the electrical infrastructure that gives it life. Victorian London runs on gas and steam, whale oil, and candle wax, but electricity remains a curious novelty demonstrated in laboratories and scientific exhibitions. The few electric lights that exist are experimental installations in wealthy homes or public buildings, powered by primitive generators that produce unreliable, flickering illumination. Your device's battery, even if fully charged, would drain within hours, leaving you with nothing but a rectangular piece of glass and metal, useless as a communication device, but perhaps serviceable as a paperweight. But let us not dwell on what cannot work, and instead immerse ourselves in the gentle rhythms of how Victorian London actually functioned, how its inhabitants navigated their daily lives with patience and ingenuity that our modern world has largely forgotten. Step with me through the quiet morning streets, where gas lamps still burn softly in the gray dawn light, their gentle flames creating pools of warm illumination in the gathering mist that rises from the Thames and settles over the city like a comfortable blanket. The streets themselves move to a different rhythm than our modern world. Horse-drawn omnibuses clatter slowly over cobblestone roads, their iron-rimmed wheels creating a steady percussion that echoes between tall buildings. The horses themselves set the pace of transportation, their steady walking gait determining how quickly people and goods move through the city. There is something deeply soothing about this natural limitation, this acceptance that travel takes time and cannot be rushed beyond the physical capabilities of living creatures. Victorian Londoners navigated their city without GPS or digital maps, relying instead on printed street directories and the accumulated knowledge that came from daily walking. The famous London street directories, published annually by companies like Kelly's, contained thousands of pages of carefully compiled information about every street, lane, and court in the expanding metropolis. These thick volumes, bound in leather and printed on thin paper, were consulted with the same care and attention that we might give to sacred texts. The process of finding one's way through Victorian London required patience and preparation. Before setting out on any journey, a careful person would study their route using one of these directories, perhaps making notes on a piece of paper about landmarks to watch for or street names to remember. The act of navigation became a form of meditation, requiring full attention to one's surroundings and careful observation of architectural details, shop signs, and other visual markers that served as waypoints in the urban landscape. Communication in Victorian London moved at the pace of human messengers and horse-drawn vehicles. While your smartphone would desperately search for cellular towers that would not be invented for another century, Victorian Londoners relied on an elaborate postal system that delivered letters multiple times per day with remarkable efficiency. The General Post Office, a massive building in the heart of the city, processed millions of letters and packages each year using nothing but human labor and mechanical sorting equipment powered by steam engines. The morning postal delivery was a daily ritual that brought news, business correspondence, and personal messages to households throughout the city. Letter carriers, dressed in dark blue uniforms and carrying leather satchels, walked predetermined routes through every neighborhood, their arrival announced by the gentle sound of footsteps on doorsteps and the soft thud of letters dropping through brass mail slots. The rhythm of postal delivery created its own temporal structure for the day, with morning letters bringing the previous day's news and afternoon deliveries carrying responses and new correspondence. For urgent communication, Victorian London offered the telegraph system, a marvel of electrical engineering that could send messages across the city or around the world in minutes rather than days. But even this rapid communication required a journey to the nearest telegraph office, where trained operators would tap out messages in Morse code, using brass keys connected to batteries and copper wires. The process of sending a telegram involved careful consideration of every word, for charges were calculated by length, encouraging brevity and precision in communication. The telegraph offices themselves were places of quiet concentration, filled with the gentle clicking of Morse keys and the scratching of pens as operators transcribed incoming messages onto yellow forms. The operators, mostly young men trained in the precise timing required for clear Morse transmission, worked with the focused attention of musicians, their fingers dancing across the brass keys in rhythms that carried meaning across vast distances through copper wires and human skill. Your smartphone's camera function would find no equivalent in Victorian London, where photography remained a specialized craft requiring elaborate equipment and careful preparation. Portrait photographers operated studios filled with massive cameras mounted on wooden tripods, their brass lenses capable of capturing images on glass plates coated with light-sensitive chemicals. The process of taking a single photograph could require several minutes of absolute stillness from the subject, as the long exposure times necessary for proper image formation demanded patience that our instant gratification age can barely comprehend. Street photography, the casual documentation of daily life that fills our modern social media feeds, simply did not exist in Victorian London. The equipment required for outdoor photography was so cumbersome and expensive that only professional photographers attempting formal documentation would venture beyond their studios. The absence of casual photography created a different relationship with visual memory, one that relied on careful observation, detailed written descriptions, and the occasional commissioned painting or sketch to preserve important moments. Timekeeping in Victorian London followed natural rhythms supplemented by mechanical precision. Church bells throughout the city chimed the hours, their bronze voices carrying across neighborhoods to announce the passage of time to anyone within hearing distance. Factory whistles added their own temporal punctuation, marking the beginning and end of work shifts with steam-powered signals that could be heard for miles. The famous Big Ben, completed just a few decades earlier, provided the authoritative time signal for the entire metropolis, its deep tones marking each hour with ceremonial dignity. Personal timepieces, when owned at all, were precious pocket watches carried by gentlemen and occasionally by ladies of sufficient means. These mechanical marvels, crafted by skilled clockmakers in workshops throughout the city, required daily winding and periodic adjustment by their owners. The ritual of checking one's pocket watch was deliberate and mindful, involving the careful extraction of the timepiece from its vest pocket, the gentle opening of its protective case, and the focused reading of its ornate hands against a numbered dial. The absence of electric lighting meant that Victorian London operated according to natural cycles of daylight and darkness that have been largely forgotten in our always illuminated modern world. As the sun set each evening, lamplighters began their nightly rounds, moving methodically from street to street with their ladders and tapers, igniting the gas flames that would provide the city's nighttime illumination. This daily ritual transformed London from a bustling daytime metropolis into a softer, more mysterious nocturnal landscape of golden pools of light, separated by comfortable darkness. The gas lamps themselves created an entirely different quality of illumination than modern electric lighting. Their warm, flickering flames cast gentle shadows that moved softly with air currents, creating an ever-changing play of light and darkness that gave Victorian streets their distinctive romantic atmosphere. The light was sufficient for navigation and basic activities, but it encouraged a slower pace of movement and greater attention to one's immediate surroundings. Without the constant connectivity that smartphones provide, Victorian Londoners developed different patterns of social interaction and information gathering. Coffee houses and public houses served as informal communication centers where news and gossip were exchanged through face-to-face conversation. Newspapers delivered fresh each morning provided detailed coverage of current events that people read carefully and discussed thoroughly with friends and neighbors. The entertainment that your smartphone provides through apps, videos, and games had its Victorian equivalents in activities that required more active participation and social interaction. Evening gatherings in family parlors featured reading aloud, musical performances on pianos and other instruments, card games, and conversation that could continue for hours without the distraction of digital devices. These activities created deeper forms of engagement and connection that required presence and attention in ways that our multitasking modern world has largely abandoned. Shopping in Victorian London required physical visits to shops and markets, where relationships with merchants and craftsmen developed over years of regular interaction. The absence of online reviews or digital research meant that reputation and personal recommendation carried enormous weight in commercial transactions. Customers learned to judge quality through direct examination, developing skills of observation and evaluation that connected them more intimately with the objects they purchased and the people who created them. The weather, without modern forecasting technology, remained largely unpredictable beyond the evidence of immediate observation. Victorians learned to read the sky, to notice the subtle changes in wind direction and cloud formation that might signal approaching rain or clearing conditions. This direct engagement with natural phenomena created a different relationship with the environment, one based on careful observation rather than digital prediction. Your smartphone's GPS would find itself replaced by the accumulated spatial knowledge that came from daily walking through the city's complex network of streets, lanes, and courts. Victorian Londoners developed intimate familiarity with their neighborhoods through regular foot travel, learning shortcuts and alternate routes that never appeared on official maps. This pedestrian knowledge created a different kind of urban literacy, one based on physical experience rather than digital abstraction. The constant background noise of modern digital life, the pings and buzzes and notifications that demand immediate attention, had no equivalent in Victorian London. Instead, the city's soundtrack consisted of natural and mechanical sounds that followed predictable patterns. The morning clip-clop of milk wagons, the afternoon calls of street vendors, the evening bells of local churches marking the passage of hours in measured, unhurried progression. Without access to instant information, Victorian Londoners developed patience with uncertainty and comfort with not knowing everything immediately. Questions that arose during conversation might remain unresolved until someone could consult a book or ask a knowledgeable friend, creating space for wonder and speculation that enriched social interaction. The absence of immediate answers encouraged deeper thinking and more thoughtful discussion of ideas and possibilities. As evening falls over our imagined Victorian London, gas lamps begin to flicker to life throughout the city, their warm glow creating intimate pools of light that transform the bustling daytime metropolis into a quieter, more contemplative nocturnal landscape. Your smartphone, even if it somehow possessed battery power, would find itself in a world where its capabilities are not merely unnecessary, but incompatible with the rhythms and requirements of daily life. The Victorian Londoners retiring to their homes as darkness settles over the city carry with them no glowing screens to disturb their natural sleep patterns. Instead, they settle into bed with perhaps a book read by candlelight, their minds uncluttered by the constant stream of information and stimulation that characterizes our modern digital existence. Their sleep comes naturally, guided by the body's response to darkness and the day's accumulation of physical and mental fatigue. This world that would leave your smartphone powerless and purposeless offers something that our hyper-connected age has largely lost: the peace that comes from presence, the satisfaction of deep focus, and the rest that follows naturally from days spent in direct engagement with immediate surroundings and real human relationships. As you settle into sleep tonight, perhaps you can imagine yourself in that gas-lit Victorian world, where time moved at human pace, where communication required thoughtful preparation, and where the absence of constant digital stimulation created space for the kind of deep rest that comes only when the mind is truly quiet. Let the gentle rhythm of horse hooves on cobblestone and the soft hiss of gas flames guide you toward the peaceful sleep that Victorian Londoners knew, undisturbed by the glowing rectangles that would not be invented for another century.